So the videos have been slowing down a little bit lately. I haven't been making that much progress, and I'm still in kind of like my experimental phase, I guess, of YouTube. So I want to experiment with some more video styles. So I decided for this video, instead of breaking it down into like 7 normal episodes, I'll just do one really long 100-day style video. And I think it ended up being around like 30 something days. But anyway, yeah, let me know if you enjoy this format. I definitely like making it more than regular episodes, so I might do this for the next one too. While editing the last video, I saw the cows that I was talking about, so I decided the first thing I had to do was go grab them. But before that, I harvested all the potatoes from the farm so my workers would have something to eat. But the second I stepped outside, I got into a fight with a skeleton, and it hit me. And all my combat troops came rushing out to help. They ended up falling in the water, and they were going to fall in that mausoleum thing with the Medusa, but I grabbed them just in time. Then I got distracted by some wild chickens and realized I should probably just restart the chicken farm, and started luring them back with some seeds. It went pretty smoothly except for a few spiders that attacked us, and some even laid some eggs. Out of the 4 that I initially got, only 2 of them made it back. I guess 2 just got bored and left. And then I started breeding them. By that time, it was already night, so I went to my town hall and I decreased the effective range of my area, which basically means that like workers won't go outside that range and it won't detect anything outside that range, which also means that if a worker sees me getting attacked outside my base, they won't run out again and just get themselves killed. Now this whole time I've been doing a lot of running from the upper layer to the lower layer, you know, back and forth the entire time to get my stuff, make progress, build and all that. So I decided it'd be a lot easier if I just moved all my stuff, so I basically spent the entire night just moving all my chests and my storage system back to the upper layer. The storage system filled up pretty quick, so I made a chest of just items that I had a lot of, basically just cobblestone. And yeah, it was morning before I finished, so I decided to go out and get some meat so I can make some new workers. And then I finished moving and I made the worker. So from this point to make more workers, I needed apples, which I didn't have any of, so I set one of my workers to a lumberjack. And at this point, I still didn't fully trust my guards to protect them, so I was going to supervise them for a little bit, but it became night. But as I was looking around my base, I did not see my combat medic anywhere. Luckily, the town hall has this thing, like, basically a death log. It tells you whenever somebody died, and apparently he got shot somehow. Luckily, it wasn't all lost. There's a troop called a priest, and he can revive things if they die, so yeah, I needed to make that basically as soon as possible, just to make sure I can get my workers back. But the problem is I still needed that apple. But at this point, it was nighttime, and I somehow fell out of the base again, and I got a glimpse of all the dangers I've been avoiding while just chilling up here. You know, there were mobs all over the shoreline I was being shot at. Pretty bad. And then by the time I got back, somehow my soldier died. So basically I had no defense at this point. It was just me and my workers. Literally right after that, all my combat people dead. You know, no defense except for me. There was an invasion the next night. So yeah, getting this apple was like pretty time sensitive now. I had to revive my troops before the invasion, because I didn't want the zombies to break in and start killing everybody. I needed some extra defense there. So I got the lumberjack and tried to stand guard again, but it wasn't really working out that well. It wasn't going too fast. And at some point my helmet broke. I was in kind of a rush now, so I just threw a basic iron helmet on, and then I went out, started mining down trees, trying to get an apple from there, and I finally got one. And then on my way back, I saw how the mobs got in. Apparently the trees were breaking through the roof. And eventually I figured out that whenever one of those tree dudes spawns, they might be called an ent, they break the blocks around them, so he's probably damaging the roof, and then, you know, mobs are getting in through there. Probably broke a few torches too. When I got back, I crafted the priest, and it worked. I revived both of my combat guys, so I geared them up, and they spawned at half health, but luckily the medic started healing them up just in time for the invasion. So the invasion started. It didn't go too bad. One zombie made it through, and we all killed him. But I couldn't find the hole, so I just spent the entire night patrolling, making sure nothing else got through. And at this point, I felt like I had a pretty like solid redundant system to fall back on. Like I had my 2 combat guys to kill anybody. If somebody dies, my priest can revive them. If my priest starts getting hurt, my medic can heal him while the other guy can kill whatever's hurting the priest. so I felt like my base was pretty safe at this point. And the only thing that could like really destroy the entire system was if the priest somehow got stuck and then murdered, or if there was a massive invasion that all of them working together couldn't stop. But eventually, more zombies made it through. Somehow they mined a block and I didn't see it, so I stepped on the block that they mined and I fell out. Basically got up the same way I did last time. I towered up right next to my mine shaft. Pretty not that bad. But then my game crashed. And it was due to the champions mod. So, apparently, I looked up the issue, my entire world was corrupted, and basically this whole thing was for nothing. I had to load from an old backup, basically like from weeks ago. Although I haven't played that much, maybe just a few Minecraft days, but still, that's like hours of play. Thankfully, I figured this out. I eventually downloaded an MBT editor, and I actually went into the files and removed what was causing the issue manually, even though everything online said you had to make a new world, so yeah, update your guides, I guess. Anyway, immediately after that, I backed everything up for like obvious reasons. But when I got back in, I discovered something awesome. Apparently the combat medic healed me too. So that whole like slow regen thing, basically if I'm in my base, it's just negated. I start getting hit, walk up to my combat medic, starts healing me. Easy as that. So I walked outside, I noticed that the base had minor damage, the front door was gone. But there were no new stairs towering up, so the zombie must have gotten this from somewhere else. I'm assuming that he either spawned in there or got in through the mine, but yeah, it was weird. Also found this slug turtle thing. So yeah, I decided to give one of the miners my pick, just to like speed up the whole mining process. I'm not really using it anyway. And I found this sunlight drop, which you can craft it into glowstone. I didn't really know what it did. I decided to right click it, and apparently it makes a day, so pretty pog. But then my game crashed again, due to the same champions mod, so I had to go through the entire process. And yeah, I took the mod out of the pack officially. But anyway, I got another apple, and due to the reasons I was talking about before, I decided that it was safe enough to make him a farmer. At least if he had armor, so I just gave him this one piece. It's pretty much all that it had. So then I decided to raid the compound that I saw in the last video. It's going kind of weird. I was taking a lot of damage, more damage than I should be taking. They were spawning in weird places. I was still winning kinda, but there were a lot of close calls. Eventually, I was low health, it was almost night, and like half my armor was breaking, so I just ran back. And then the next day, I finished them off. And most of the chests in there were empty except for 2, but in those 2, the loot was literally insane. There were tons of apples, new weapons, armor, but the main 2 things, iron and diamonds. So now that I had diamonds, I thought I could craft more health packs, basically permanently increase my maximum health. It turned out I also needed more emeralds to do that. You need 2 emeralds, I only had 1. But anyway, diamonds, I could get a lot of stuff done with that. There's also a pretty big underground part to the old compound, but I decided not to do that yet. I didn't think I was ready. So yeah, I gave my combat NPC the new weapon I found. Pretty much geared up my NPCs with everything I got. That night, an event called Cinderfall began, which is basically exactly what it sounds like. Cinderfall spawns cinders.
Cinderfall, prepare to burn.
And yeah, cinders spawned indeed. I also found out that birds can make it through a 1-block gap, so in the future I was gonna have to cover all the holes in my base. At some point, a cinder also broke in. Overall, Cinderfall didn't actually end up being that much of a threat, and during the night I also made another reinforcement modifier, which meant that my shuriken now only had a 60% chance of taking damage whenever I used it. Even though only 1 made it into the base, the next morning cinders were basically everywhere, but again, it wasn't that big of a deal. They have short range, so I was just able to pick them off with my bow. After that, I went back to the castle to try the underground portion. And I knew it wasn't going to work out when I basically instantly got poisoned for over half a minute, and I had to do the half-part walk of shame back to my medic. I spent the rest of the day getting beef for workers, but I didn't have any gold. So I eventually made a mini auto smeltery. I also realized that if I got some slime, I can make a crafting grid, which basically lets me craft directly from my ME system, which saves a lot of time in recipes and stuff. But since I didn't have slime, I decided to spend my diamonds on an enchantment table instead. So that way I can start enchanting my miner's pickaxes, which should theoretically allow them to mine better, which would get me more diamonds and, you know, make a little loot. But I had no lapis, so I couldn't enchant yet. The next day, I found a fish that when killed dropped lapis, so yeah, my lapis shortage was solved pretty quickly. And then I decided to explore the quarry hole left by the miners. I did find a chest in there, but there was nothing good. But the main thing is when I came back up, I had Call of the Hive. This is basically like a parasite disease. It doesn't do that much to me. If I die, I spawn like a human parasite, but the main thing about it is that it meant that an animal was infected with it. So yeah, the parasites at this point started infecting animals. And once the first animal's infected, it spreads pretty quickly, so yeah, I had to keep an eye on that. That night, I used the lapis to get efficiency 1 and 2 enchantments. And then I set up another hopper system for the quarry, so I didn't have to keep constantly draining it. But unfortunately, this was the day I forgot to close the trapdoors. Or I guess open them. Because while I was down by the forge, a creeper walked right up, blew a hole in my base, and zombies were trying to get in. They were all rushing it. Luckily, I had my shuriken, and I was able to patch everything up in time. A little later in the night, I decided to check if there were still any zombies there. And this thing was there. Honestly, creepy as hell. The second I opened the hole, it just started staring at me, so I closed it up. I was not going to deal with that night. The next morning, I realized I actually did have gold, probably from the raid. So I made 3 more workers and another combat NPC. At this point, the quarry was going pretty hard. I basically had like an army of miners operating it. And I was pretty hopeful that I could get some diamonds in the future. So I turned my combat NPC into a combat medic because I figured that he might be able to help me with a raid. I could go down there, beat some guys up, and then if I start taking a lot of damage, I could run back up and he could heal me. I also repaired my weapons and armor. So yeah, I was pretty much all geared up. Everything was repaired. I had my combat medic ready. I ran to the base to do the underground part again. Literally the second I placed the medic though, this dude just ran off on his own and left me to fend for myself. I got poisoned, I got hit down to half a heart. Like, and this dude was doing nothing for me, just abandoned me. And with no other option, I just kind of had to run back. But when I got back, I checked the town hall, and this dude didn't die. He literally just straight up abandoned me and thrived. Felt pretty betrayed by this one. The next night passed without much really happening. And in the morning, I noticed that there was a chest in the quarry. So, since there was a chest in there, I figured that the workers mined a chest, so there's a good chance that there's chest loot in the hole, and I decided to grab it. Obviously, this was going to be pretty dangerous. I decided that an iron helmet wasn't going to cut it, so I crafted a helmet out of steel, bone, and prismarine. And the main thing was the prismarine. It gives it the amphibious upgrade, which basically allows it to store air like a scuba tank and then let me breathe underwater. I then upgraded it with the diamond just for the extra protection, and I got a rotten egg from, I guess, a chicken. I tested it out and it was pretty good. It held a lot of air, but I made some wooden doors just in case. There were a few geonotches down there, but it seemed like none of them really knew how to move in water, so it was pretty easy to deal with them. I also noticed that the quarry workers seemed to be digging sectionally, like they didn't dig the entire thing at once, which I thought was pretty weird. The quarry hole ran straight through a sunken ship, so I investigated it and found a golden apple. There wasn't anything else left down there, so I went back to my base just in time for nighttime. That night, I realized it was pretty much impossible to beat the compound with my current setup, so I decided to do some upgrades. I started out with making 2 steel trims and steel plates, which basically upgraded my armor's defense and toughness. I then upgraded my shuriken with the prismarine blade, and I replaced the paper blade. This basically took away 2 modifiers, but increased the damage and ammo, and gave it the ability to do more damage the less ammo was left. The next day, I decided to raid the compound again, but this time I had a better strategy. I started out by walling off the section where the witches were coming from. That way I'd only have to deal with what I thought would be half of the compound. Overall, this worked out pretty well. There were a few zombies that like jumped out of corners and stuff, but it wasn't that big of a deal. I also found my old medic here. And there were a lot of chests here that were like trapped. They spawn zombies when you try to open them, but the loot here was crazy. Like, the chests were filled to the brim here. And my medic and I had a pretty easy job of just dealing with the zombies. But I mean, yeah, look at this, like, cooked food for days, gold, leather, I could craft, like, aquatic treats, avian treats, it was pretty good. After that, I was feeling pretty confident, so I coaxed my medic into following me into the second half. Literally the second I opened a door in there though, there was an evoker, started summoning those like sprite sword pixie dudes, completely murdered my medic. I was trying to help him, I was trying to defend him, but it wasn't safe, I had to retreat. That night when I got back, I saw that my miners had found lapis, so I decided to try to enchant pickaxes again. This time it went pretty well, I got efficiency 4, 3, and 1 enchantments. The next morning, I finally found slime, but I already used all my diamonds, so I couldn't make a crafting grid. And I made a basic tool quality upgrade for my quarry, which I should have realized that this was a thing earlier, but I didn't. But it basically allows me to mine stuff at the level of iron. And then, yeah, the stuff keeps going. They have diamond and obsidian. But the second I put it in, it like literally started filling with ores. And at this point, I decided to conduct a proper raid on the compound. My idea was to have a small army of combat units and then place a town hall at the top so that I can have a priest reviving whoever dies. So I crafted everything I thought I would need and I ended up being able to get 3 combat units. That night I also got 2 wither skulls from a reaper. In the morning I geared up my soldiers and headed out. I set up the town hall, placed all my troops, and started the raid. But it did not go well. Basically the same thing that happened last time started. My guys were getting demolished by the Vindicators, I couldn't beat the Summoner, and I had to retreat. For once the guards actually followed me, but this left the priest alone where he was basically just murdered. I wasn't even safe on the surface outside of the base because those little like pixie dudes with swords kept coming up from the ground and stabbing us. So I eventually just repacked the NPCs and took them back to the base. When I got back, I was able to make another reinforced modifier, so my shuriken was almost unbreakable. But that night there was an illager miner invasion. This is basically, I think, the worst invasion that you can get. I thought that it might have an upside though. If I can kill illagers, they might drop emeralds, which I would need in the future. I figured that I want a full army for this one, so I spawned the rest of my soldiers. But it was going bad. Like, my soldiers were dying, they were dropping their loot everywhere, I was taking a lot of damage, I was dying, and I figured if I stayed there for too long, they would eventually get to my priest. And if my priest died, no more revives, and basically the base is done. I decided that my best option was to run away, so I mined a hole in the base and started slime booting out of there. But while I was hopping out, I got my legs broke by a freaking banshee, a banshee of all things. In the middle of this like invasion, the banshees are still what gets me. I barely managed to escape that, and I decided that my best option was to tower up. I figured from up there, if anything started flying at me, I can jump down and use my slime boots to get away, and if anything was towering, I could use my shuriken to keep them down. A few zombies started mining towards me, but I was able to take care of them, and at some point a Jin hit me and knocked me off, but I was able to tower back up. And eventually I survived till sunrise with very low health. So I hopped right back to my base, but it turned out that nothing had despawned and there was a mutant creeper. So I decided it would probably be a bad idea to try to make it back right now, and I waited for my absorption hearts to regenerate. Now, there was actually a pretty crazy fight. Like, the illagers were shooting at me, they were summoning things, I was shooting back. Eventually a skeleton archer got involved, they got me down to half a heart. Like, I was barely surviving this. I got lucky that the creeper despawned. And after like everything was dead, there was still a skeleton sniper and I couldn't figure out where he was sniping me from. He had me cornered behind my staircase. I was literally like at half a heart. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't peek out. I couldn't like tower to my base. He was hitting me from weird angles. Eventually, I decided that I'd have to run away and just pray I didn't get shot. And then run back using the bounce from the slime boots and hope I have enough speed to dodge the arrows. And I actually ended up missing my staircase and falling into the water, but he stopped shooting at me, so I guess it worked out. Oh, and from all of that, I ended up only getting one single emerald. Also, my workers for some reason were glitched, but thankfully they were alive, and I was able to fix it just by like picking them up and replacing them. During that Minecraft day, the quarry finished, they mined every single block possible, so I picked it up and I moved it to a different spot. This was actually pretty pog because I don't know if you guys have heard it throughout the video, but the quarry is annoying as hell, and I did not want to have to listen to it anymore. I also researched mathematics and construction, which would help me if I ever got enough diamonds to upgrade the quarry again. During the rest of the day, I focused on making the tree farm huge so that no trees would be mined while they're touching the roof, so that it wouldn't like fall on the end and then break through the roof and then allow mobs to get in. The next night passed without anything eventful happening, and the next morning it was raining and nothing was despawning, so I stayed in for a little bit and went fishing. After that, I went out in search of lava, and I ended up finding this lava pit, but I also found this desert temple, and it had some pretty good loot in it, as you can see. I decided to go back. I further upgraded my armor with even more steel, and then I used all of my redstone to upgrade my pickaxe. I figured it would need as much speed as possible for mining obsidian the next day. But then, most of the chicken turned against me. The guards ended up slaughtering almost all of them, and I trapped what I could in the corner in the little puddle. I pretty much just spent a really long time mining obsidian after that. I ended up getting 40, and I started making the resist modifiers. I also had an idea for an XP farm, for which I grabbed a cactus. Basically, the idea is I would place the cactus on sand, I would get a medic, and then I would let the cactus constantly damage me, which would increase my armor XP, and then the medic can heal me in the meantime. So these farms are basically pretty common in like the leveling mod packs, but I couldn't do it until now because I basically don't regenerate health, but yeah, I realized with the medic I can make this work. And then I made the final durability mod for my shuriken. I drained it to 1 durability before I did this so that I would get the max effect for the prismarine, and I put it on, making it unbreakable. I spent the next few days mainly just farming experience and protection modifiers. Over that time, I made some bone trims to improve my armor a little bit more. Started running out of crops, so I made the crop farm a little bit bigger. I also raided a camp and I got this, which is pretty cool. And yeah, at the end of it, I ended up with resistance 8 on my pants, which is the highest level, and resist 1 on everything else. So yeah, pretty solid episode. Thanks for watching, and yeah, like even the gameplay and editing, this took so much more time than a normal video, so if you liked it, please like, and hopefully I earned some subscribers. See you next time.